In today's episode of our photography review show, we're gonna look at landscaped, mixed, and wildlife photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. I hope you had a great week and I hope you're ready for another big portion of photography reviews. If you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. I'm also a founder and creator here at Clever Photographer. Now, if you want to join us for one of your future episodes, make sure that you head to our website cleverphotographer.com, search for our membership there. It's called Clever Photographer Plus, and you get access to this photography review show. You also get access to our private photography group called Clever Photographer Academy, and finally, you get a full bundle of photography tools every month. This month, for example, we have over 260 photography tools, including textures, presets, overlays, brushes, LUTs, Photoshop actions, everything you can imagine, all covering spring photography. So if you're into spring photography and you want to give it a try, head to our website, try it right now. It only goes for $9.99 a month, and you can just give it a go. You can cancel anytime and you can enjoy all the benefits. So if you want to join us already for the next week, head to our website and search for membership. So that's out of the way. Now let's jump into the reviews. And here we are with the reviews. We are once again inside of the Lightroom CC where we do all the reviewing. So let's jump straight into it, starting with Evgeniy here and looking at two of his images. So let's jump into the information here and let's start by looking at the camera details. So starting with this photo, ISO 200, 39mm, f6.7, 1/500 of a second. So as the setting goes, I think it's all good. So the ISO 200, once again, obviously following what the camera is able to do, I think it actually performs quite well in this dynamic range of the colors and everything. 39mm, quite wide, but it looks quite natural and nice. f6.7 I think works here, obviously bringing the sharpness and a texture across. That's quite nice too. 1/500 of a second shooting into the sun with the nice clouds in the sky. I think it brings quite nice results. So I think as a camera setting goes, I think it's very, very good. There is a little bit of slight noise from what I'm looking at, and actually it's mostly a color noise. So I wonder if it's maybe the size of the image or why, but nothing necessarily wrong with it. I think it's quite nicely done. There is nice glow around the sun. Once again, nice texture in the sky. There's kind of strange element a little bit here. I wonder if it's from the clouds or something, but other than that, nicely done. Then we jump into this one. Again, we're looking at the technical data, and similarly, same camera, we're looking at ISO 200 again, 43mm, so still quite wide, f5.6 and 1/45 of a second. So 1/45 of a second to manage the light conditions. So probably it was a kind of darker day because you even went with your f-stop quite low to f5.6, keeping everything nice and sharp again. Again, when I zoom in, there is a slight kind of color noise coming through, which is interesting because usually I don't really see it on your images. So I wonder if it's something to do with the transfer of the photos from RAW files to JPEGs. You can see a little bit more noise here in these areas as well, and so on. So just something to kind of look out for and see if maybe you can remove it a little bit more in Lightroom or any application like that. Now, since we already here, let's talk about the composition. I think this is quite nice actually. I quite like the view, the shape. Obviously it's all about that. It's quite dominant. The crop and framing works quite well. I like how everything is straight. Very, very well done. The sharpness is very decent. Obviously this kind of buildings helps with the depth of field. I think it's very well done. I really, really enjoy it, Evgeniy. Very, very, very good. For composition, I think excellent. Shame for the gray sky. You kind of wish, you know, when you think about cruise ship, you kind of would wish that there would be sunset there and or some kind of warm coming and really make you or bring you into the holiday mood. But other than that, very well done. Now this one I love. I think it's great picture. As a composition goes, there is lots of the water filling up big part of the picture, obviously. I would probably crop it a little bit. I would maybe go a little bit more to the 16:9 or even tighter and see what I could get with that. So maybe like this, simply because it just seems that there is lots of water, which doesn't necessarily add anything to the image itself. So that would be just my suggestion. Other than that, I think the parts, when you have two parts of water and one part of the rest, I think works quite nicely. The sun is in this third of the image, which I think is well placed. The bridge looks very cool too. So all in all, composition goes quite fine. When it comes to post-processing, I would once again double check the white balance. So obviously this is way too cool, but I just see some green bits coming in. That's quite interesting. Let's see if we push a little bit the pink, maybe some of it goes away just a little bit. Let me show you before and after. If you just look at this part, there is a little bit of green there. Other than that, I think it's quite nicely done. Let's have a look at your white. There's a little bit of overexposure in this part, but nothing crazy. Your blacks, you could bring them down a little. I think it's quite nicely done. I quite like it. Now on this one, when it comes to post-processing, I think it's very natural, very nice. It's clean. I would maybe make it a little bit brighter. Yeah, somewhere around about 33, just to kind of make the white and everything pop out a little bit more, and obviously with the kind of darker skies and gray skies, this is the color coming through, so I think it all kind of matches itself nicely, and the result is very nice. So all in all, I love both of the pictures. They are both about a little bit something else. This obviously all about the cruise ship and all the details and texture, I think works very well there. On this one, it's all about the sun. I wish you would try a little bit with ND filters, try to do some long exposure to get some think a little bit more interesting than lots of these waves, but other than that, well done. Evgeniy, thank you so much for sharing your photos with us. Make sure you send them also for the next episode with us. Which brings us to Greg. Greg, we have 2 more images from you, and Greg is my favorite train guy, so let's have a look what you sent us this week. Let's have a look if we have it all original. Yeah, so let's jump into the camera settings. So starting here, Nikon D5300 with the lens 16 to 80 millimeters, and then from camera settings, ISO 100, 65 millimeters, f5.6, 1/200th of a second. So let's start by looking at the sharpness, which is quite decent. So the shutter speed was well placed. F5.6, obviously keeping everything under control in a combination with ISO 100 is always good idea. I like the details in the actual fog. I think that looks great. The light as well, the warmth. I think all in all, it's very well done. Love it. Now here with this train, let's have a look at it. Same camera, same lens. I wonder even if it's the same train. No, it's not. ISO 200, 24 millimeters, f8, 1/250th of a second. So let's have a look at it. As a noise goes, it's minimal there, so not a big deal. Sharpness is quite good. I think the front could get away with a little bit of more sharpening or a little bit fixing just to make sure that it's kind of crisp sharp. F8 is fine. It's kind of sharp all the way through. You can see even the trees and even the building. So it's kind of sharp all the way. I think the smoke again looks very, or steam looks very good with the 1/250th of a second. All in all, I think it's very, very well done. That brings me to composition. And a composition, as a composition goes, I just wish there was more space here. I'm sure you expected for me to say that. You know, when you have a kind of moving people, machinery, cars, trains, bikes, animals, when they facing towards certain way, we expect there to be some kind of space in front of them. So similarly, where this train obviously is coming and you're trying to fit it all in, you would wish that there would be at least this much space on a side for it. Where maybe I wouldn't really have needed these buildings because it's all about the train. I wish there was more space in front of it. Other than that, I think the composition is very, very good. It's very nice, very nicely done. The angle is good. I quite like that. I just wish there was more space from in front. And on this one, you would almost say that you wish it's the kind of opposite. You have lots of space here, but when you compare them, I think this one is better simply because there is the space in front of it and it's all acting as natural. The terrain is pretty much on this side in the kind of third, and I think it works very, very well. However, you could get a little bit more space here next time, but they are still both very, very pretty images, very nicely done. It's just as the composition goes, the suggestion for me would be here more space here and a little bit more space here. So I wonder, this was 65 millimeters. I wonder if you could have gone a little bit wider, and if you maybe get some kind of distortion, you let me know. Moving on the post-processing, with this one, it seems really, really warm. So I wonder if we go to color and we check the white balance with the auto tool. Oh, it makes it all very blue. So I wonder if we would maybe just go this far, because this seems to be a real yellow. So maybe just a touch less. And with the warmth, yeah, I would go more on a pink side than a green, because you're almost getting green hues in this part of the image. So maybe just a little bit of purple, just maybe something like this, I think makes it a little bit more natural. Other than that, I think it looks good. I think a little vignette, which is already there, always goes a long way. So I would just maybe bring it down a little, use the masking tool, use the radial gradient, and really kind of make the terrain pop out with a little bit of extra exposure. And other than that is fine. And on this one, similarly, I would just kind of make more focus on the terrain itself. So once again, radial gradient, point it at the terrain, bring the exposure up, and then create one more, again, gradient, highlight the terrain, and then invert it and bring the exposure down. So we're creating vignette, but around the circle we created. So something like this. I think that's a little bit better. Now this one, there is a lot of warmth on this one. So if we look at the white balance again here, I think this is a little bit more natural. We can bring some of the warmth back, but I think with the kind of gloomy sky and everything, you really want to keep everything just as natural as possible. And I think this is much better. So something like this, there you have it. Greg, thank you so much for sending us your photos. I always love to see them. There's nothing really that wrong with it. Just a few tips for what you could do better or differently in the future. And take care, stay safe, and send us more pictures as soon as you can. Which brings me to Tony Shaw. Tony, you bring us some pictures from Scotland. Oh my God, that brings a memory size photograph displays quite a few times. And this one, looking at it like this, it could be Ferrypools. Let's see if there's any information about where it is. Glen Rosa. I've never been in Glen Rosa. Commando Memorial. I've been and photographed several times. It's a brilliant place. Obviously heading from west to east or east to west. Beautiful, beautiful mountains, and it's just very well done. This one has your typical Scottish landscape. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. So let's have a look at it. Starting with this image, starting with your camera settings. You have a Sony camera 18-55 lens, and from the camera settings, ISO 100, 20 millimeters, f18, 1/125th of a second. So as the setting goes, very well done. I'm not 100% sure why you went for f18, because really there is no long exposure here. The water is still quite sharp. You know, it's quite simple scene. I understand that maybe you would want to make sure that everything is sharp, but I think for this scene, f11 would have been more than enough and everything would be still sharp. Just keep an eye on f-stop, because when you reach certain limit, which some cameras is f16, f18, f21, f22, the camera actually start to introduce a new way of noise, and it's not really sharp. So just keep an eye on it. You need to test your gear and see what works the best. However, that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Also, f18 will bring lots of sensor dust out, and every little particle you have on your sensor or lens will come out as well. So just something to kind of keep an eye on for the future. And this one, Still, Nikon D7000, 17 to 50 millimeters lens, and from camera setting ISO 160, 17 millimeters lens, f11, 1/160th of a second. Now, looking at it like this, the ISO is quite small. There is a little bit of noise kind of peeking through, as you can see on the actual memorial. You can see on the kind of darker parts that there is also on the trees. So probably for maybe the Nikon, maybe quite kind of high dynamic range with a little bit of noise coming in. Not a big deal, but maybe something you could try to remove a little bit more in Lightroom or something like topaz the noise. F11 is fine here. This is perfect example of where that's more than enough. You see how much details you have on the actual mountains and how much details you have on the foreground. So F11 is perfect. And 1/160th of a second with lots of details, good light. It's a good option. Well done there. So when it comes to composition, I really like this image. I think that is very nicely done. I love how the statue is right here in this part of the image, how the proportion of the sky with the land works very well together. One thing I would do, I would probably straighten the statue, so you can just head into edit and then go into geometry and click on auto here. And that straightens it just a little bit. Yep. And I think that's about it. I think it's very well done. When we move at this one, now with this one, I wish you could have taken a little bit more of the water to go a little bit wider. I understand that you were going for the rock as a kind of foreground or middle ground. However, I wish there was a little bit more of it, simply because if the river would be right in front of you, I don't think it would be as visible. But as the river is on a side here, it really looks like it was poorly cropped. So I just wish that you have gone either wider or you have placed yourself a little bit more in the middle of the river. That's when it goes to composition. Other than that, I think it works very nicely. These waterfalls or these little falls create a really nice foreground. The rock gives us a little bit of scale. The flow through with the river works very nice, guiding you towards the mountain. So it's all there. Just I wish you could have been a little bit more towards the right. Maybe this would be a good scene to go landscape and actually take the whole thing with you and then see what you can crop out of it. When it comes to post-processing, not much you can do here. Obviously a daylight scene, little tricky, especially in Scotland. You get lots of these kind of evenly lit parts, which are a little bit trickier to work with because they don't create as much contrast. There is a little bit of color contrast, but if it would have been later or earlier in the day, I think you could get gone and get a little better light. You could have also naturally bring your shutter speed down a little and maybe get a little smoother water. But other than that, I think it's quite nicely edited. Of course, you could add a little vignette in effects here, just like maybe something like this, and then with the brush maybe highlight with a little bit of extra exposure the actual falls, just to kind of point your eyes towards them. So that's for this one. Now on this one, I actually think the one thing I would look at is the details and the noise in overall. So let's just zoom in and see if we would push a little bit the noise reduction. Something like maybe this. And leave it there. Yep, just something like this. Obviously, you could again work with it locally. You could create a new mask. Right here, and radial gradient, point it at the statue and just bring a little bit of more light on it, just to add a little bit more attention to it. So it almost works like a little torch, and you're basically just pointing it at the spot you would like to highlight. So all in all, Tony, love your two pictures, love your pictures from Scotland. Make sure you send us more. I can't wait to see them. Most importantly, stay safe and take care. Bye-bye. Brings us to Laurie. Laurie with two images this week. This absolutely gorgeous dog with beautiful eyes and a great separation and everything, very well done. And this sunflower right here. So let's talk about it. Let's have a look at it. Camera settings, Canon 5D Mark II, and that's about it. No more data here. That's a shame. On this one, we have the data, Canon 5D Mark II, the lens is 24-105, and from settings, ISO 320, 82mm f4, 1/80th of a second. So being inside, indoor, kind of lower light situation, 320 on your ISO is fine. I think that's a good choice. That should be still more than manageable. 82mm, so being nice zoomed in, getting this lovely shape and lovely proportion. Also very well done. Bringing the f-stop to f4, creating this really nice soft background. I think that really creates a really nice separation and depth of field, so that's well done as well. And 1/80th of a second, if the animal doesn't move, it should be fine. Obviously, if it would be moving, 1/80th of a second is a bit slow, but I think in this case it worked. Let's zoom in a little. And there are lovely details around this part, his eye, the pose, and then it all kind of softly and slowly gets into the blur. So it's quite nicely done. Obviously, I really like it because the subject is very clear here, and it's very nice pose. It's a beautiful animal, quite nicely cropped. I really like this kind of tight look. I think it works very well. The fact that the background was a little busy, so I think it really works that you created this softness at the back. That's very, very well done. All in all, well done. I really like it. As a composition goes, it's very good. Now on this one, specifically when you're taking picture of a sunflower, I think there are two main things I would talk about on this one. Number one, you really want to make sure that the whole flower is in a frame, because if it's all about the flower and it's so dominant on the picture, you really want it all in a frame. You don't want it to be just partly cropped. And the second thing is the light. You can see the really harsh light kind of poking through. Even though it's nicely done, it's visible a lot. So that's where I would start. Other than that, I'm a big fan of sunflower photos. I think they can be really beautiful and really cute. This is a nice attempt, lovely colors. I think sunflowers are one of those flowers who can work really well with the blue sky. I think the contrast just works very, very well together. However, it's the cropping where I would keep an eye on when it comes to composition. When it comes to post-processing, not much I would do here differently neither. There's a lovely kind of natural vignette here. The flower is there, the colors are natural. I think the shadows are open well. It's more the technique I would focus on this one rather than anything else after. Where on this one, when it comes to post-processing, I don't know. I don't think I would do anything differently. I really like the exposure, the shadows, the colors, the saturation. For me, thumbs up. Really, really like it. Laurie, thank you so much for sharing this image with you. Thank you for sharing both of the images with us. You take care, stay safe, and send us more pictures as soon as you can. Which brings us to Zdenek. Zdenek all the way from South Africa with more images. We have some animals here. And then we have the landscape with a beautiful path. So let's jump to it and let's have a look what we have. Starting by looking at the camera details, Canon 600D with the S55 to 250, so quite big zoom there. ISO 200, 250mm, f7.1, 1/400th of a second. So ISO 200. I wonder why, because it seems like quite kind of full-on daylight, but maybe it's the camera gear which doesn't allow you to go to 100. So that would be one thing I would look at. f7.1, creating quite nice soft background for them. Quite nicely done as well. f7.1 is a good value for this type of situation. Although the background is soft, we can still recognize it, which I think it makes it a little bit more natural. And 1/400th of a second, making sure that all is sharp and full of details. So very well done there. Moving on this one, ISO 100 here, 18mm, f14, 1/100th of a second. So ISO 100, perfect, 18mm, very good, nice wide shot here with the f14. I wonder why f14. Maybe making sure that everything is sharp, and everything is sharp. 1/100th of a second, making sure that you get textures in the sky, everything is nice and sharp. All in all, I think the camera settings are very good. I think the sharpness is very reasonable too. Again, the texture in the sky works very well. The colors are quite nice. So I think technically it's very well done. Now, when it goes to composition on this one, I really like it. I love the path on 1/3, then I love the 2 trees, and I think together it's very nice. I really like what you done here, and I think it worked very well together. I also like that the 2 trees are not cropped off. So I think that's what lots of people would do, but those 2 trees are really important for the composition, and you want all of them there. Now, if I would want to be really picky, I would go in a Photoshop and try to take away these parts, just to remove some of the destruction from the main trees. Other than that, I think it works very well, and I like it a lot. I think it's very well done. When it comes to composition on this one, I wish you have zoomed out a little bit more, just a touch more. I think it's a little bit tight for what you're capturing. However, other than that, I think it's nicely done. I think it's nicely done with the animal facing towards you, the other one next to it. So obviously it's like a baby. I think the shadows and the light works very well here. I think everything just kind of works together. It's just I would have zoomed out touch more. When it comes to post-processing on this one, let's have a look. Let's see how are we with our white balance. That makes it really blue. We don't want it that blue, definitely, and we don't want it that green neither. I think your white balance is better than what Lightroom offering us, so I would leave it there. And really, I wouldn't do much more to it, to be honest. I would just leave it. I think it looks very natural, and that's what this shot should be really about. It's a natural shot of the animals in their habitat, and I think it works very well. So let's just leave it. On this one, it's a little bit kind of fade away color, which works very well with the contrast of the ground, with the kind of ginger orange. What we could do, again, I think there is some vignette already looking at it like this, but we can always add some. You can also add some vignette locally by using the masking tool and the radial gradient, and you can just point it to where you want to be the center of the vignette, and then you invert it and just bring down the exposure. You can do something like this. You could also add a little bit of brushing, and with a little bit extra exposure, we can maybe add a little bit of interest to some parts. We can bring it down a little. We don't want it that visible, but something like this, and leave it there. One thing, just keep an eye on here in the side, you have a little bit of some artifacts, something to kind of keep an eye on. Maybe it's some of the trees leftovers, but just keep an eye. Other than that, I love this image. I think it's very well done, very clean, very well edited, very well put together. So Zdenek, thank you so much for sharing the image with us. It was a pleasure to see it once again. Take care, stay safe, and hope to see more images from you next week. Which brings us to Ken. Ken and his birds photos. Excellent, Ken. Let's jump to it. Let's have a look what we got here. Starting with this one right here, Nikon Coolpix P1000, ISO 280, 395 millimeters. What a zoom. I wonder how long is this camera. f7.1, 1/500 of a second. So Ken, looking at it like this, ISO 280 is fine. Obviously the light is a little bit harsh. f7.1 creating this really nice soft background, which I think works very well here. I wonder if you could have gone even a little bit lower and really blur the back, if it wouldn't help a little bit to create even more contrast. 1/500 of a second, making sure it's all nice and sharp. So that you done very well. And other than the light being a little bit too harsh, it's really nice. I really like the interaction. Obviously the bird feeding the little babies, it's very well done, and I love it. Now looking at this one, is it the same animal? Sometimes some of the birds make me laugh, and not only me, Pauline as well in the office here. You know, when you wake up in the morning, there are pictures from you. It always makes our day. So thank you so much for sharing them with us, and this one included. So let's have a look at it. Same camera, ISO 160, 155 millimeters, f5.6, 1/500 of a second. So once again, the sharpness is there, the details are there, the background is nice. There's a little bit of noise on the background, but the background almost turning into something like a bouquet, and I think it looks very cool. And again, the light is a little bit harsher, but it's nicely done. Now, when it comes to post-processing, when it comes to composition, I wish there was more space in front of him than behind him. That's probably my biggest thing here. Obviously, with the wild animal, you want to give them a space to move into rather than back into. So I wish this much space was here and this much space was here. Other than that, very well done. Now on this one, as a composition goes, I would probably be even tighter to what's happening there, because that's what really all the image is about. And that's the mother or father feeding the little ones. So I think really zoom in like this, brings out the main subject, bring it up and make it even stronger, and it makes it look really, really cool. So well done on this one. I already told you. Now when it comes to post-processing, let's just double check your white balance. I think a little bit more pink, definitely, and not because I want to pink everywhere. It's just that when I bring it down, you have green into their whites and you want it a little bit more natural. So when you go for auto and bring it down a little, I think that's the result we looking for. Other than that, very good. Only thing you could do is use the masking tool with the linear gradient and just darken the bottom a little bit, maybe something like this. So let me show you before, after, before, after. And on this one, the cropping is probably my biggest thing on this one, but I would again double check the white balance with the auto, again bringing up the tint. Your camera, I think in overall, makes things a little bit more greener than they are. So try to always push the tint a little bit to get the natural colors out. Other than that, a vignette on picture like this is always a good idea. And we could do the same thing as we done in the previous image with the linear gradient. Just close the image from the bottom. Let's see. Linear gradient from the bottom. Close it up, something like this. Maybe not that much, maybe something like this. So Ken, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you send us more pictures for the next week episode and stay safe. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us for the next week episode, all you need to do is to head to our website and search for our membership, Clever Photographer Plus. You can subscribe, try it, give it a go for a month and find out more about our monthly bundles, about the photography review show and our special group, Clever Photographer Academy, with lots of competitions, photography talks and lots of photography fun. Thank you folks. Thank you for joining me this week. Stay safe, take care and keep shooting.